Hi, Linda Vitti from Linda Vitti's Life Coaching and Counseling, and I want to talk today about trauma and teenagers. And the reason I want to talk about how trauma specifically affects teenagers is because if we have gone through childhood trauma, like many of us have, if we have repressed memories or memories that are kind of locked away, and you turn into a teenager, you go through puberty, you start trying to be somewhat independent, but you have these deep issues about trust and deep issues about making everything your fault and deep issues about not feeling like you're good enough or you're smart enough or you're pretty enough. It can be overwhelming to the point you learn to try and cope the only way you can. So we may start to use food. We may start to use cutting. We may start to use promiscuity. We may start to get involved in relationships, like getting high on romance and be crazy about that. We may find different negative ways to cope with these feelings that we're having rather than face them head on because we're a teenager. And believe it or not, at one time, I was a teenager many years ago. But as I deal with teenagers today, it's not much different. Yeah, the technology is different and things like that, but the feelings, the coping strategies, and the suicidal thoughts, I see it in teenagers who have trauma backgrounds or don't even know they have trauma backgrounds because they can't even get to that part of their childhood yet, even though they're only a teenager, believe it or not. Or they're sugarcoating their childhood, or they don't want to admit that their parents did anything negative because they don't want to get their parents in trouble. There's a lot of dynamics of why teenagers don't want to talk about this stuff and don't want to tell the truth, even to a counselor. Because, look, let's face it, HIPAA or not, there's certain things we have to report. There's certain things we have to tell the parents about. There's certain things that we're liable for. And so teenagers may not trust us. And so I let my teenagers know that anything I'm going to do as far as your care, I'm going to run it by you first. I'm not going to go to your parents or stick you in a psych ward if you tell me you're suicidal. I want you to be able to tell me the truth without me jumping the gun. I'm going to vet that and make sure that it's not something thought out and it's not something you're immediately going to do, and we're going to have a safety plan in place. But I want you to trust me. I want the teenager to trust me. And if your teenager is not trusting their counselor, there's a problem. They're not going to get to the root of it. And just sticking a child in a psych ward or a residential treatment program, yeah, it may do some good, but they also may dig deeper into the secrecy and dig deeper into the trust issues. So we really want to think through how we're impacting teenagers. And if you are a teenager listening to this, understand you're not alone. You're not the first one to go through this, and you're not the only one going through this. There's so many out there like you that are struggling. So get in a support group, get in a private group, get in a chat. Dip your toe in the water with friends or acquaintances and see if they ever struggle with certain things you may be thinking about. You need to really not be isolated in this, because that's what teenagers do. They isolate in it. And that makes it worse, and that makes it more secretive, and that makes it harder to treat. So the number one thing I want parents and teenagers to know is, first of all, you've got to get help, and you've got to be able to trust your counselor. There's got to be ground rules set where the teenager feels safe and the parents feel safe. The second thing I want the teenagers and parents to know is this has been going on for generations. Maybe the different ways of coping are newer or more evolved, but eating disorders, cutting, promiscuity, all of these things teenagers have been doing for generations. So we want to really let them know they're not alone and they're not the only ones. I've gone through that. I was suicidal as a teenager. I had an eating disorder as a teenager. I dabbled in cutting as a teenager. And it was all a result of childhood trauma that was repressed. Okay? So as a counselor, I not only learned it in school, I learned it through the School of Hard Knocks. And I didn't have anybody to help me through it. I didn't have anybody to dig into the trauma. I didn't have anybody to dig into the root. So you need somebody who's going to dig into that root and get underneath just the symptoms. Because when we treat just the symptoms, we're not getting to the core issue. And until the core issue is dealt with, symptoms will pop up. Different symptoms will pop up. So we always have to get to the core issue. And we have to build a relationship of trust between the counselor, the child, and the parent. The parent has to know, I'm not going to tell you certain things. I'm not going to share things with you. I want to earn your teenager's trust. I will give you the basics, I will give you generalities, and I will give you strategies. But I will not be giving you information. And that's just the way it is. Because the teenager has got to trust me. And when I say teenager, I'm talking anywhere from 11 to 21. So guys, don't ignore the symptoms. Get your child help. Get the trauma dealt with. And if you're an adult listening to this and you dealt with that as a teenager, and you may be still doing some of those things today and you're no longer a teenager, I still want to help. I absolutely want to help because those symptoms aren't going to go away until you dig into that trauma, dig that infection out, and heal it. And I want to help you heal it, okay? Please find me on Facebook, Instagram, message me in Messenger. I'm on TikTok now. You can find me. I will answer, okay? We'll see you next time. God bless.